Well, I think we can go ahead and get started. Pass the floor to our colleagues at the Commission.
Very many thanks, Helen. I guess then it is for me to open this workshop. So good morning, everyone. Dear members of the Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Academy and dear all, I'm very excited to be here. My name is Chiara Diondino, and I work at the European Commission in the DG for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion, where I am in charge of the unit for the future of work and youth employment. So I work in a very much adjacent policy area, although not specifically on youth entrepreneurship, but I'm here also with the colleagues from the entrepreneurship unit. So we are here to discuss today very important topics. I'm very happy to open this sixth workshop of the Academy. So today, we will exchange insights and have conversation on effectively designing and delivering youth entrepreneurship policies. Why am I here? Well, because youth entrepreneurship policies are very closely linked with general youth employment policies. And to tell you about what we do, what I do with the colleagues in my unit is, among other things, we have a tool that maybe you're familiar with, which is the Youth Guarantee, which is our main tool to address youth employment and inactivity. The Youth Guarantee aims to guarantee young people a job, a training, apprenticeships or traineeships within 4 months of becoming unemployed or leaving education and training. And although entrepreneurship is not specifically mentioned as one of the 4 offers under the Youth Guarantee, it is of course a valid option for many young people. The Youth Guarantee can support youth entrepreneurship, for example, by in the training, promoting entrepreneurial skills and providing entrepreneurship support. And these are all part of the recommended activities under the Youth Guarantee. The ambition of this academy is to initiate policy changes in favor of the youth through improved mutual understanding among policymakers, experts, and youth representatives. We have to first recognize that from a policy perspective, approaches and tools that are used across the EU are very diverse. So it's important that we understand and learn from each other. They range from integrated financial instruments to innovative training programs to the development of entrepreneurial ecosystems. They all have the potential to provide young entrepreneurs with some of the necessary tools and environments to succeed. Policies are, of course, always shaped by good intentions. However, we need to recognize that despite these well-intentioned efforts, challenges still persist, and effectiveness and efficiency of the tools that are being implemented are not maybe where we would like them to be. Common pitfalls often include mismatches between policy goals and real-world needs, fragmented delivery systems, and lack of coordination, to mention but a few. Today, we hope that our discussions will help us understand how the lessons that we learned, the evaluations, can ensure robust and coherent policies effectively serving the purpose of youth entrepreneurship. As many other policies, the success in this policy area relies on some critical factors. It is always important to start with a well-defined set of objectives that have been identified, formulated together, and agreed with all stakeholders. Second, which is always a bit tricky, is to ensure that we have the proper budget as well as the necessary flexibility to reprioritize or adapt rules based on agile monitoring systems. As it is for youth employment policies in general, effective youth entrepreneurship policies require collaboration between a number of stakeholders. This is extremely important in our view. Partnerships and networks are needed between government, educational institutions, the private sector, and social economy actors. In this regard, one of the most difficult tasks in our view is to develop effective working methods. As you have seen in previous workshops, promoting entrepreneurial mindset skills, it's also a question of education and training. And this can and should start already very early. Of course, with different kind of teachings and different kinds of experiences. But we believe that it's important already in primary school to start getting acquainted with this kind of mindset. And also continuing, of course, through secondary and afterwards. So it needs to be promoted in all types of curricula, from vocational education and training to continuous education and training to business schools to higher education. So it's very important to promote a cultural shift that values and encourages entrepreneurship. Empowering young entrepreneurs with the skills, the resources, and confidence that they need to succeed is key. And here I would like, if you allow me, to share my own example and my own experience, because before becoming head of unit for future of work and youth employment, I was responsible for vocational education and training, which I really loved very much. And during our study visits and conferences, we had the opportunity, I had the opportunity to see incredible vocational schools. And for example, I would like to talk to you about Technica in the Basque countries, an amazing school that covers secondary also, and also for continuing that, that covers various sectors. They're very strong on advanced manufacturing, but they also are very much looking at cybersecurity, smart living, smart agriculture, really top of the line classes. And one of the things that struck me is that they have entrepreneurial hubs embedded in the school, so that when students arrived at the last year, they also encouraged or supported in going off to set their own businesses, including micro enterprises. And this is not an isolated case. I also saw this in the Netherlands, for instance, in Leeuwarden, but I'm sure that there are very many other instances. And I think this is a good practice, a best practice that we could also bear in mind. But back to today's program. Today, we will listen and discuss best practices of successful support packages, combining financial and non-financial assistance, fostering an entrepreneurial culture that embraces innovation. And our goal is to share this type of knowledge, foster collaboration, and explore how these examples can be adapted and scaled up within our own frameworks. I look forward to the fruitful discussion and collaboration that will emerge from this workshop. And I am also delighted to announce the Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Summit 2025 in Brussels in October. And this will be the final YEPA event, and it will be very important to capitalize on all the work done so far to promote youth entrepreneurship since the creation of this policy academy. The preparation of a legacy document is also on our agenda today. So with all that, I am very happy to give the floor to Dr. Jonathan Potter, Head of Entrepreneurship Policies and Analysis Unit at the OECD. So John, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everybody. Great to be here. We're going to hear in a minute, Zagar from the Ministry of Economy in Croatia. And then we'll talk about Youth Business International and a panel discussion on some of these questions about policy design and delivery. And you got a networking moment and some presentations and discussions about principles of successful policy design, delivery, and evaluation. So you've all got the program, and here is, of course, to all of our YEPA workshops. The sixth workshop for this group, and we've got 3 groups. So we've done a lot of workshops over the past 2.5 years, and we hope we've built a community, and we hope that you're collaborating together and feeling part of this. Because we're going to do this legacy document, and that'll come out at the Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Summit. And as you heard, the summit's in Brussels on the 6th to 7th of October. Before then, we want a short note that sets out some of the policy actions that we want member states to take, and we want to identify what the key issues are and the key good practices. So we'll, invite you to take part in that exercise of putting forward ideas, and the OECD document will send you to the big confident can have some percent that'll keep our flag flying in the world about youth entrepreneurship. Deliver programs. You can make the decision that you want to support young entrepreneurs, but you've got to do it in the right way. Finance, the award of grants and loans and prizes in business competitions and so on. So you like creating a brochure or a website and this sort of thing. That's finance. And then you've got all the non-finance, which is basically advice and training. And, the methods have been changing. They've been going more digital. They've become more experiential, giving you the chance to work in practice on a business project rather than talking about it in a classroom setting. That's the context. And then there are at least 4 major things to get right. These are the sorts of things we'll talk about. One is tailoring to the context. So first of all, tailoring entrepreneurship policies to young people. Secondly, to the type of young people that you're dealing with, whether it's graduates or NEETs, not in employment, education and training. Tailoring's a big issue. Targeting the right public is a big issue. Making sure that you're reaching out to the people who can really benefit, and maybe not being just generic and advertising something to everybody with no selection criteria. You maybe want to target those with growth potential, for example. Third thing is to consult. A good policy design is one that's based on a consult holders. The fourth to monitor. That actually goes back to setting objectives as well, as Chiara mentioned. It's important to set your objectives for your program at the outset, and then to monitor against how well you're achieving. And evaluation is your key tool. And then design and your delivery approach are working. I haven't talked about a whole thing, do you work with third-party agencies or deliver it as the public sector? There's all those questions. But what we want to see put in place is a trial and test approach, where you use monetary valuation to adjust the approach as you go along. So there we are. These are the sorts of things we can talk about. Looking forward to the discussion, looking forward to seeing you at the summit, looking forward to any inputs you want to give us. Remember that we're here, the OECD will help, the Commission will help. If you want to set up any side events with us, we'll do that. I'd like to pass the floor now to Daniela Zagar of the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development in Croatia. She's our host today.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good morning to all. At the beginning of today's workshop, allow me to warmly greet you on behalf of the Croatian Ministry of Economy and on my own behalf. Welcome to the last workshop of the YEPA workshop series. Don't know about you, but for me, last 2.5 years during which we worked together on shaping youth entrepreneurship policies just flew. During our 2.5 year joint work, we have surely awakened that well-designed youth entrepreneurship policy could be a strategic tool for all countries across EU and OECD to address various economic, demographic, and social challenges. Only by empowering youth to become um, job creative, job creators rather than job seekers, it is possible to foster more dynamic, inclusive, and sustainable economy. On the other hand, I think we all have perceived that apart from well designed policies, solid access to finances, and stable entrepreneurial environment, much more should be done on promotion of entrepreneurship among young people, especially during formal education. Entrepreneurial competence is one of the 8 lifelong competencies that everyone should have. Therefore, it is necessary to ensure that a formal education system provides appropriate education to young people for the acquisition of such competence in time full of challenges, but also opportunities. It is important that we give young people space, knowledge, and to support to develop their potential. Entrepreneurship is not just a job; it's a way of thinking. It is the courage to take risks, to learn from mistakes, and to persistently move forward. Our goal is to encourage dialogue, share inspiring stories, exchange ideas, and most importantly, to connect people who believe in the power of youth. I hope that this day will be filled with new knowledge, useful contacts, and inspiration because every successful entrepreneurial story starts with one step, one conversation, or one opportunity. Let's be the ones that will make change and not the ones that will wait for others to make it. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniela, for those words. It's a great opening to this workshop. So I now have the pleasure to introduce Wanda Brandt, who will be diving into the topic and investigating the why behind supporting young entrepreneurs. So she is representing Youth Business International. Over to you, Wanda.
Thank you, Helen. Hi, everyone. Just bear with me 1 second as I share my screen. Okay, so as Helen mentioned, my name is Wanda Brandt. I work for Youth Business International, YBI. We're an organization based in the UK, and I'm going to introduce our youth entrepreneurship policy framework today. So before I dive into the framework, just a quick overview of who YBI is. So our goal is to drive economic growth and job creation through supporting and scaling youth-led businesses globally. We've been around for over 25 years, and we lead a global network of enterprise support organizations, currently in 70 countries worldwide. And all of our solutions and interventions to support young entrepreneurs are designed in collaboration with our local member organizations. So that ensures that we can create bespoke solutions that can be adapted across different contexts and address various challenges. So our approach to advocacy as a global network is to guide and shape, not to dictate, because we know that the policy context and the ecosystem is different in every country, and that a one-fits-all approach wouldn't work. So our recommendations are therefore broad enough to influence key actors in the ecosystem, but still narrow enough to be practical and adaptable to be used by our member organizations and organizations generally. So our framework was launched in October last year. It was developed in collaboration with the Global Entrepreneurship Network, and it was building on UNCTAD's policy guide, which came out in 2015. So our framework offers a new insight into the challenges in youth entrepreneurship, and presents suggestions for practical support and policy changes needed to harness the potential of young entrepreneurs. So the goals of the framework are to provide recommendations for the entire youth entrepreneurship ecosystem without going into too much detail of which parts of the ecosystem should implement which kind of solutions. So it offers a comprehensive overview of the levers available to policymakers, and it is a tool for enterprise support organizations, policymakers, and other actors in the ecosystem to identify gaps in the support within the ecosystems. And it also showcases successful youth-focused policy initiatives that are already existing. In terms of the methodology, so we've conducted extensive interviews with international organizations and experts such as UNCTAD, YMCA, and others, as well as a comprehensive literature review. And as I already mentioned, we built on that policy guide by UNCTAD. And based on all of these insights, we came up with 50 targeted solutions for policymakers to consider. And each of these solutions comes with a detailed real-life policy case study, which we have taken from the Global Entrepreneurship Network's Atlas of such policy case studies. So in the framework, we identified 3 kind of emerging trends in youth entrepreneurship. So one is about youth entrepreneurship as a solution for youth unemployment. So global youth unemployment remains at around 13%, and 20% of young people are not in employment, education, or training. Entrepreneurship can be a solution to that problem. So there's research that found that 40% of youth aspire to launch a business, but then the percentage of youth who actually do launch a business is much lower than that. And the ILO estimates that tackling this issue could contribute up to 7% to the global GDP. There is a lot of research that finds that young people have a large desire to find work that aligns with their social values. So over 80% of Gen Z and millennials prioritize purpose within their work. And we see that reflected across the businesses that are started by the young people that we support. Research by YBI in 2022 found that entrepreneurs under 35 are more than twice as likely to say their business exists to solve a societal problem compared to those over 35. And yeah, relates to that, green and social entrepreneurship is also a big trend in youth entrepreneurship. Over 70% of Gen Zs and millennials take action to reduce the impact on the environment, both in their personal and professional life. And young entrepreneurs under 35 are much more likely to prioritize promoting diversity and social good over profits within their businesses. So we've categorized the barriers to youth entrepreneurship in these 4 categories in our framework. So the first is skills and opportunity. A lot of young people lack self-belief in their own abilities of becoming entrepreneurs. They often have limited opportunities to develop entrepreneurship skills because it's often not included in school curriculums or further education. Many young people face economic and time constraints if they don't come from a wealthy background and have to work to sustain their livelihood. They often don't have the time or the means to start a business. And underserved communities are often even more excluded from entrepreneurial activities. So that includes people with disabilities, those with low-income backgrounds, or ethnic minority groups who face additional barriers. The second category of barriers is business environment. So there are often high barriers to business registrations, complex regulatory procedures in areas such as licensing and taxation, which can be very daunting for someone, a young person who is starting a business for the first time and has no knowledge of any of these regulations. In some countries, there may be legal consequences of business failure, which again can be quite daunting to a young person starting a business. And there's often fragmented advice and guidance for young entrepreneurs, so they don't know where to turn to. The third category is access to finance. So securing loans or investment from banks and traditional investors often requires collateral or a credit history, which many young people who are just starting out in business simply do not have. And that then means they're not eligible for financial support. A lot of young people have low levels of financial literacy, so they lack knowledge about things such as financial management, record keeping, etc. The application processes for financial support are often complicated and hard to navigate for young people who are unfamiliar with this territory. And a lot of financial products that are out there may be inappropriate for the needs of young people who are starting a small business and needs things such as low collateral loans or low interest loans. And lastly, access to support. There is a lack of quality mentorship to provide guidance and support to young entrepreneurs. There's limited support for commercializing ideas and creating a sustainable business model. A lot of young people lack access to the physical workspace or the technical facilities that they need to create the products that they would like to create for their businesses. And they often have underdeveloped networks, and there is a risk of young people becoming trapped in a youth ecosystem if they only access youth-focused support and there isn't a pipeline to connect them to more mainstream ecosystems. And those who want to start a green or social business needs tailored support. They have different support needs, which often isn't available. So our framework recommends these next steps to policymakers. So we recommend that policymakers take the framework to conduct an audit of their ecosystem and identify the barriers and support that exist within their ecosystem. They should engage young entrepreneurs and also enterprise support organizations from the start to really understand their challenges, as they are the ones most affected by this and closest to the issues. It's important to launch a national entrepreneurship strategy and also integrate that across departments and within other national strategies to ensure a successful delivery. And lastly, some additional takeaways from our framework that I would like to highlight is, as I've already mentioned, there is a big risk of young people becoming trapped in youth networks and just always staying within that youth ecosystem, which stifles the growth of their business and their ability to scale. I mentioned earlier economic opportunity. So the financial freedom to start a business is something that a lot of young people simply do not have if they don't come from a wealthy background. And this is an issue that requires different solutions that are separate from just creating access to capital for young entrepreneurs. If you simply don't have the financial means of freedom or time to start a business, then yeah, it's just never going to happen. It is valuable to nurture a diverse team of co-founders rather than individual entrepreneurs. Yeah, that just ensures different skills and perspectives are coming together, and there's higher likelihood of launching a successful business. And as we've already heard earlier, it is very important to train the entrepreneurial muscle and the entrepreneurial behavior from the early years and expose young people to entrepreneurship as a career option from when they're young, and nurture those entrepreneurial skills in school and beyond. So thank you, everyone. If you scan that QR code, it will take you directly to our framework. But I will also pop the link to the framework into the chat box.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that presentation and outlining some of the key barriers that young entrepreneurs face and solutions to those challenges. So as Wanda said, please feel free to look in the chat so that you can access the report later. I know she'll put it in there in a few minutes. And we're now going to move to our panel session where we're going to dig deeper into how different countries are approaching designing and delivering youth entrepreneurship policies. So I'll now pass the floor to my colleague, John Potter, who will moderate this session.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, everybody. I do like this entrepreneurship muscle. I haven't heard that term before, but it's great. It's a great term. So we need to exercise our entrepreneurship muscle. Now, the panel is about how to approach policy design and delivery. We've got until about 11:15, and there is a chance for people from the audience to come in at the end of that panel discussion at 11:15. So you can write something in the chat or raise a hand, and we'll try and catch you. The people we're going to invite to join the panel are Daniela, who you heard from the Ministry of Economy in Croatia, and Alain Asca, who's advising the DG ESIP, and then he's the national coordinator of the National Plan for Entrepreneurial Spirit at the Ministry of Higher Education and Research in France. So Daniela, Alain, and lastly Giuseppe Negro, Territorial Services Office in the Ministry of Enterprises in Italy. So if you get ready, I mean, we've got the questions in the agenda, and the first question would be, tell us something about the objectives. Something that Chiara mentioned was important, to establish the objectives behind youth entrepreneurship policies. So how did you get the objectives? What were your objectives? Can we start with Alain, maybe? Does that work for you, Alain?
Thank you, John. You know, the objectives of our policy is you understand me? Giuseppe, it's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
So the main objective of our policy is mainly about skills, about the development of new skills through a personal and then very intense project-based learning process. And what we want is to improve the professional integration of our students, because I'm specialized for higher education. So whatever they decide at the end of the process, the main objective is to foster the competency through this new approach, this intense participation of a project-based learning process. By this way, what we do is not to select only a very robust projects led by a student already trained in entrepreneurship. Of course, they are welcomed, but what we are looking for is for young students or graduates who are deeply motivated by the idea to give an answer to economic, social, cultural, environmental issues. They have no experience, they have no professional network, they don't have money, they don't have so much time because they are studying or they are working to pay the rent of the apartment. But who else but a public player can help these students to compensate for these disadvantages with no economic pressure? So our objective is to attract these students who wants to be entrepreneurs. They want to be engaged on the main topics of the society, and we help them to succeed in the process, to learn about these challenges, even if they don't create a new business or a new association. Is not a problem. They will be very competent salarymen and women in companies for the futures. So this is the objectives to the young people. Second part, and I will be very short, the objective is to help universities to be more entrepreneurial by themselves. Because we are helping students being entrepreneurial, we are becoming more entrepreneurial by ourselves. I try to be short.
Okay. No, that's right. That's the way to do it. And then, you know, it's maybe just something about objectives. You know, in the Territorial Services Office, you know, what do you do? And, you know, how did you decide the objectives? What are they? Can you tell us something about that?
Okay. Is it for me? Sorry, John, sometimes the
Well, I
sound is
was
not very
trying to
good.
move on. The sound is not good. Sorry. I was trying to ask Giuseppe that
Okay,
question
fine.
to talk
Okay.
about objectives.
Hi, Jonathan. Especially on the field of education, the office where I work doesn't have any activities at the moment. The Ministry of the Enterprises tried to set up on the territory of Italy the point of information consultancy point for businesses, for young businesses or potential businesses, especially to address on financial instruments to carry out their business idea. In the future, the plan is to also to acquire training needs from enterprises, but at the moment there's not our core business. Our core business now is, as I told, is to give information orientation to the businesses, potential businesses, to the instrument of various institutions, local institutions or national, about the needs to carry out the business idea. For example, Alfredo, we address Alfredo to CTA houses of emerging technology in Bari, which is also financed by the Ministry of Enterprises, which is a technological transfer center in a kind of incubators or business incubators. But as I told you, one of our tasks will be also acquire the training needs from the enterprises, but at the moment is not implement this task.
Is that those are the two main ones, or is there another one area of activity?
Now, our area of activity is addressing businesses, potential businesses, to various instruments, both national or local. The ministry set up, for example, a platform for all the financial tools, financial aid for enterprises, which is in incentivi.gov.it, incentivi.gov.it. Is collected all the financial aid for enterprises. We also give aid to discover, because it's quite complicated, that platform actually. And but we can address also to non-financial aid, as already said. For example, Chamber of Commerce give help enterprises on the internationalization, for example, just to help businesses to events abroad. And mainly we give an help to the enterprises, potential business, in the addressing to the tools of the ministry, and which they carry out from in-houses company or other institution who carry out practically the measure.
Okay, good. And so we've also got Daniela here from the Ministry of Economy, Croatia. Daniela, you're not visible to us.
Yes,
Could you
I'm
tell us
present.
something? But you're there.
Body
What are
and
the
soul.
objectives? Body and soul. The soul
Yes.
is there, but it's
Yes.
not quite visible by normal methods. So what have been the main objectives behind your youth entrepreneurship policies? And can you tell us also, just merge into the next one, what are the challenges that you've identified that young entrepreneurs have?
Yes, thank you. So Croatia, like many EU countries, has historically faced high youth and unemployment rates, especially after financial crisis in 2008. So our entrepreneurship policies were aimed to provide alternatives to traditional employment, and to encourage self-employment, and as well to integrate young people into the labor market more rapidly. In Croatia, youth entrepreneurship is included in broader national strategies, such as entrepreneurship development strategy. The latest was until 2020. The national plan for development of the education system. The plan emphasizes entrepreneurial competencies of young people. Then a national strategy for youth. The strategy links employability and entrepreneurship. Strategy for lifelong entrepreneurial learning. It expired in 2014 and was focused on developing entrepreneurial competencies. As such, also recently we have a national development strategy until 2030. Generally promotes entrepreneurship and innovation, including youth entrepreneurship. Also, there has been a consistent effort to shift mindsets and attitudes towards entrepreneurship by promoting of entrepreneurial thinking from early age. We heard that about that in a welcome speech. from the Commission supporting youth-led business initiatives and competition, and also by increasing public awareness of entrepreneurship as a career option. For instance, my ministry for many years conducted a grant program through which we encouraged the establishment of cooperatives in primary schools, training companies in secondary schools, and also student incubators at faculties. And I'm very happy that I can tell you that after 10 years, we will re-implement these measure, but now encouraged with EU funds. We achieved to ensure 6 million euros from the European Regional Development Fund for the period till 2027. Another objective was to equip young people with necessary knowledge about entrepreneurship, and it is mainly through entrepreneurship education in secondary schools and university. We all have a very strong vocational education base, vocational education schooling, and it is mainly the main characteristics is that is mainly conducted in the economy, so students can also achieve some competencies regarding leading company and dealing with customers and so on, while they are on a practice in the company. And finally, we have ensured access to finance to overcome one of the biggest barriers in young entrepreneurs space is we all know is lack of capital. So Croatian policies have included grants and subsidies for youth-led startups. It was also carried by my ministry, but really long time ago, more than 10 years ago. And more recently, by favorable micro loans and financial instruments through institutions like Croatian Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and lately by HEMAC Bicro agency. My colleague will later tell you more about it. So and also the important is that we have a very solid institutional framework for youth policies. So youth policies is cross-sectoral topic under the jurisdiction of the various ministries like Ministry of Economy, Labor, Education, Social Politics, and similar. But lately we have central body in charge for youth. Currently is Ministry of Science, Education and Youth. You asked about barriers for young entrepreneurship. I would say similar like in other countries. It's lack of capital, a lack of knowledge, lack of proper education for entrepreneurship, and there's still a mindset that entrepreneurship is something you do when you don't have anything else to do. Yeah, it's not like option for career, but something that is a necessity, I would say.
Okay, let's ask Giuseppe and Alan about this second question on the agenda there. It's about the challenges, and the question is, how do you know what problem you had to address, in France and Italy? You've got a set of policies, you've got them doing certain things, but how did you know what they needed to do? What's the problem? What's the challenge? Would you like to have a go, Alan?
Okay, in 2013, the French government decided to organize a nationwide consultation about these problems. So we had this consultation on entrepreneurship with citizens, and among the citizens there were students. And students, they testify from their different problems. So this requires us to question ourselves about the way we help them or not for entrepreneurship. We understood also that their families and sometimes their professors, they were afraid that the entrepreneurship process might distract them from graduating, and maybe it could take too much time for the students, and it was not so central for the families. And we know it sometimes it's the weight of this fear is maybe more important on women than on men for different reasons. So it was a fight also for us to deal with. And at the end, what we know also from this consultation is a student told us that to settle a company or to be engaged in an entrepreneurial process, it takes time. And so there will not be more, so the process is longer than to be a student, sorry for that. So they will be graduated, but not yet entrepreneurs, that will not have already created the company. So they were in a kind of no man's land. There are no more students. There are no more the salaries, men or women, and there's nobody to help them. So we took into account these structural problems, and so we decided two things. First of all, to have a national approach of the problem, not local, but to have local solution with this national approach. First of all, that means that a student will have a national status when he is an entrepreneur. That means if he's in an entrepreneurial process, he can say to the professors, to the family, I'm recognized for being an entrepreneur, like, sportsmen and women. When they are high-level sportsmen and women, they have a kind of status. They are facilities in the university. So we decided to give this status to give them the rights to ask for these facilities. And we organized a network, or now there are 32 hubs in France in charge of this policy. They are named like Pépite. They are in charge of entrepreneurship, transfer, innovation, and so on. And the 32 hubs, they will have at the end of the year 77 operational teams in contact with the students. So they are not supposed to do the job at the place of the university. They are here to help universities to be more performative with students for entrepreneurship, and they are here to secure young students with their status of entrepreneurs. So if they have some problems, they can ask the hubs to help them. And at the end, they are connecting universities and socio-economic professionals to help students to be supported. So just two figures. This year, we helped directly 6,700 students to be entrepreneurs, to go in their program, in their entrepreneurship project, sorry. And for the beginning of the process, there were 46,000. So it's not as much, but it's quite a lot each year to help these students. And what we know is 35% of students in France are aware of entrepreneurship thanks to these actions. So the main problems was mainly cultural, maybe about fear, and maybe about structural impeachment because of our organization. So we decided to work first on our structural problems, then to secure families and teachers, and then to give support to students.
Okay, so you've had a lot of contact with students, that's noted, and that helps you to know what they need, and they tell you about their problems. How about Giuseppe? How do you know what problem your policy had to address?
I agree with Alan because the main problem is the lack of information that young young could be afraid of starting carry out a business idea. So the office where I work aims to fill that gap between potential young entrepreneurs and the institutions, because in Italy there's a there's a fragmentation in various institutions, both local or national, who give you aid for starting a business. So which we intend to do is to fill that gap and to closer bring business or potential business closer to institution, giving them information about the opportunities in the various fields, and regarding the specific topic, the training. In training, the ministry has financed 13 houses of emerging technology. I'll use Italia growing CTA, which is all over Italy, which is which they are technology transfer center based mainly in university, in technology university. Alfredo passed from the CTA of Bari, for example, and they give assistance in potential entrepreneur to carry out their business idea, mainly starting from students in that university, for example, especially in technology field. And so maybe Alfredo could add something.
No. So Daniela, the Croatia, did you ask students or youth or networks for information on what challenges they were facing?
Yes, mainly we collected data through cooperation with key institutions, youth organization, and through labor market research. A lot has been done through the youth guarantee, which was introduced owing to recommendation of the EU Council on this establishment of the EU guarantee. But as well, we rely a lot on international reports like data from Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, Eurostat, World Bank, and OECD, which are used to compare with the other countries and to identify barriers, because barriers are still quite similar across the countries.
Yeah, yeah, of course, you've got the European Union and OECD inclusive entrepreneurship country assessment notes for each of the EU member states every 2 years. So whilst you're talking about using GEM and Eurostat and World Bank and OECD, let's just give a shout out to the fact that in each member state of the EU there's a note that you can access called, Inclusive Entrepreneurship Policy Country Assessment. So that's good. Let's progress on the agenda a bit. That for either Giuseppe or Alan, the question would really be, how you ensure that the policy will include the different profiles of entrepreneurs. Put that another way, is there a danger that some groups would have been missed out by your policy if you didn't do something? What do you think, Alan?
The inclusive dimension of our program is a political requirement, so there is no choice, and fortunately there is no choice. We have to take care about that. So we are particularly attentive to those groups who who may encounter some obstacles to be entrepreneurs. We can follow them thanks to our tools. We decided at the national level to have only one tool to give support to the entrepreneurs, only one tool to enroll in the program. That means we have data about who is inside the program, and because we have only one tool for the support of students, we know that these people, they do follow these courses or not, they go to the event or not, they have support or not, they have created a company or not, and so on. So we can understand how many female we have, how many people that declare a disease, how many people who have some social support from the universities and so on. So we understand this kind of categories, they could have some problems to go to the project. So we can follow them thanks to these data. But to monitor the data is not enough. We have to develop programs to help them to be more for these people to be more welcome in the entrepreneurial world. So they are in our.
So when they apply.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, when they apply, when the young people apply to your scheme, they have to give certain information that you monitor, like their sex, are they male or female, and do they have a handicap? Is that what you're saying?
They can, for male or female, they can choose to give the answer male, female, or other. If they want to tell us they have an handicap, they can tell if they have one or not, but they can say they have not, if they don't want to make it known by our teams. But if they have an handicap, we have a special program to help them to read the papers, to help them to access to the facilities and so on. So what we can say, we have services, and we can activate the services because of their specific situation. We know, as an example, our national program exists for 11 years now. But at the beginning, we were very strong in the main cities, in the main metropole. But for the moment, we have to go in the area, in the suburbs. We have to go in the more rural areas where we have some universities. Then we have developed this new operational teams, as I told you before. So 77 now. So it also a result of our tools. We know we had some students in these places, but not with no permanent contact with them. So our teams, we are going to these places from time to time, but it's not satisfying. We should have, in France, it's very important to have the equal treatment of all students. So we try to go to this objective. We know it's not easy. So because we were following with our tools, we know we had a potential of these students, but not with the same service than the one who were in the main cities. So we put the money on the teams to be close to the students. So we are looking to these categories. We know, for an example, to be very concrete, for women, it's not satisfying. At the beginning of the program, there were only 20% in the program. Now they are 36%. Is not enough. There should be a little bit more than 50% because we have a little bit more than 50% of women in our program in the universities. So we know we have a lot of obstacles for the women, and we try, from our point of view, to deal with this problem. The society give us also some constraints and so on, and the families and so on. So we have to fight about these problems. So we follow and we ask the women what's going on, what the problem from your point of view, and they are in steering committees. All these students are in steering committees, and they can talk for the other students and to say, okay, our problems now are quite different than the one we had 10 years ago. Now our problem is more about as an example, some of them says to be entrepreneur is heavy in a psychological point of view. It's not very easy for us for the moment, after all these years, to support this pressure on the system. So we have to help them with more personal development approach. It was not in the program before. We have to put it on in the program now. So we are thinking about how to help the students to be more free about that and to give away the weight they have on the mental pressure of to be an entrepreneur. Sorry for my English, but I hope you understood my position.
No, the English seems to be perfect. So Giuseppe, so what do you think about this?
Generally speaking, in Italy, there's a aid for enterprises who take a hire person with disabilities. There are aid on taxes, but they are not topic on my ministry. And also another policy, national policy is about it's mandatory for some enterprises to hire a certain rate of people with disabilities who has a disability. Generally, as I said, in Italy, there is a very huge fragmentation about entities who give aid for enterprises. So I know there's some provinces, maybe Chamber of Commerce, who maybe can they have a tender or incentives who could be involved in enterprises who has a certain rate of people with disability in the team.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, the last question on the agenda for the panel is about how you've done monitoring and evaluation. So can I turn to Daniela? Go back to Daniela there in Croatia. What about monitoring and evaluation?
Well, if I may say so, this is still our weak point. As I already mentioned, Croatia integrated youth entrepreneurship policies within broader strategies, which often set the stage for youth targeted programs, but include limited monitoring frameworks for youth entrepreneurship. So, Croatia definitely lacks integrated monitoring system, especially for young entrepreneurs, and could profit from centralized database on all youth entrepreneurship policies, which currently doesn't exist. So this area still has room for improvement, particularly in terms of systematic evaluation, integrated data, qualitative evaluation methods, and sectoral cooperation.
So this is a work in progress. You realize that you need monitoring data
Yes.
and you need evaluation data. You need it
Yeah.
across the system. And
Yes.
this is watch this space is what you're saying.
Yes.
And Alan, what about monitoring and evaluation? Have you built any into the programs you run?
Okay, for what's about monitoring, we have quite a lot of data because of our tool, because we have decided to have only one to develop for all the hubs. But I have to say that we have to be very humble because we have data on the people we have under the light, under the spotlight. But I know there is a lot of people we don't see. So first of all, we have a lot of data about the people we help directly. The 6,700 per year for what is about supporting their entrepreneurial project. In terms of evaluation, because I told you at the beginning, we are focused on the acquisition of skills. What we do, we measure the skills at the beginning of the process and at the end. So it's kind of self-evaluation of the competencies. We have developed a framework based on Entrecomp, and then all the hubs, they're supposed to ask the people to make the evaluation when they start. And this evaluation is made with a mentor, because sometimes the young people, they say they can deal with a competence, but they don't. And sometimes they don't recognize the competence they do have. So we help them to make the evaluation. And at the end, we help them to understand what they have done thanks to the program and what they are able to secure as competence. So it's important because, you know, we know that 1/3 of them will create a company at the end of the program. So 2/3 will not immediately. They will maybe after that, longer after that, but not yet. So they will need to have these competencies and the badges and the certificate about that right now to show it to an employers. So it's important for us to be focused on the competencies. But for the time we are working on the ultimate evaluation tool for us is we would like to measure the differential impact on the professional integration of our students compared with a population, a control population, you know. Do we have an impact on the way they go to the market of labor compared with those who don't be with us? It's very difficult because we have to look for that in the long term, but we are not allowed to ask people where they are because of policies about private data and personal data. So we can have some meta data, but not personal trajectories. So we have methodological questions. It's not clear for us for the moment, and we would like to ask for researchers to work on the question, but it's not so easy to measure this professional trajectories in the long term, the midterm. So for the moment, we have good vision with pictures, but not with the movie. We don't have the trajectory.
Frame by frame.
Well, you get everything you can get, don't you? You monitor everything you can monitor, like who's taking part and how their skills are changing, and then ideally you'd compare them with people who didn't take part, and you'd ideally want to break it down by different types of people who participated to see whether there were more impacts on some types of people than others, that sort of thing. So that's ongoing. And Giuseppe, what about monitoring and evaluation?
We are setting up a system on monitoring the access of the users to the various CMI all over Italy. And so we profiling enterprises, we acquire their needs, and we keep in touch with them, informing them about new opportunities on their field of interest in their territories they are interested. So that project, considering that project was born is April last year. So we are at the beginning. So typically when we address businesses and potentially new enterprises to a kind of measure, certain measure, typically they have to fill the schemes, or they have to wait to know if they are financed or not. So maybe they don't inform us about what they are doing. So it's quite difficult we have to set up better maybe this type of monitoring, but we are just beginning this challenge.
Yeah. All right. That's brilliant. So I think that we close our little panel now. I didn't see anybody having a question, so that's fine. It's about the right timing anyway. And then Helen might tell us what we do, because it looks like we've got 10 minutes to go and walk around, and we come back at 11:30. What's going on, Helen?
Yes, so we will now move to our break. So you have 10 minutes to stretch your legs, grab a cup of coffee, and then we will be back for a networking session. So just like in workshop 5, you'll be put into small groups, and it's just an informal opportunity to talk with other YEPA participants, catch up, and perhaps exchange on a few ideas for the topic of the workshop. And then after that, we have an exciting second half of the agenda with presentations that will be a deep dive into various program and policy designs and delivery processes. And as foreshadowed by the commission and the welcome, we'll also be talking about the YEPA legacy and what that entails. So we will be back at 11:32.
11:32, got
Yes.
it. Okay, see you at 11:32.
We will now start our next session, which, as I mentioned, is a networking opportunity for you to talk with your fellow YEPA participants, catch up from the last workshop, and it's meant to be an informal opportunity to converse. So you will see a invitation to join a breakout room, and you can go ahead and accept, and we will meet back in 10 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the opportunity to get to know each other a bit better. So I'll just give a few more seconds for people to transition back to the main room before beginning our next presentation.
Hi, Helen from Cyprus. I'm Konstantinos, Georgiou.
Hello.
I'm
Thank you
here.
for joining us.
I apologize for the delay, but I was in another meeting.
It's understandable. We're happy you were able to join in the end.
Hi, Konstantinos.
Wonderful. Okay, it looks like everyone has made it back. So I will now invite Ivana Cesar from the Ministry of Labor, Pension System, Family and Social Policy of Croatia to present on the design of the microfinance scheme in Croatia. So we're going to go into more of a deep dive look on how Croatia has been approaching the design and delivery and the key principles of these programs. So over to you, Ivana.
Yes, hello to everyone. So I'm just going to share my presentation for the I hope it's visible.
We can see it. It's not in presenter mode, but we can see the slides.
And now? Okay.
It's still the same, but it's okay. You can go ahead.
Oh, it's not in the presenter slide.
Right.
Okay. Is it now?
No.
Okay. And are the slides moving?
No, they're not. It's still on the first slide.
Okay, then I will. Okay. Okay, so my name is Ivana. I'm from the Ministry of Labor, Pension System, Family and Social Policy in Croatia. So we are actually the managing authority for the European Social Funds Plus. So basically this microfinance scheme is financed through the ESF Plus through our program Efficient Human Resources 21st-27. So basically how we decided on setting up this particular financial instrument, the basis for financing through financial instruments actually is the ex-ante assessment. So the ex-ante assessment is obligatory according to the Common Provisions Regulation. So this is the main regulation for EU funds implementation. So we had to do the ex-ante assessment. You can see the name. I hope the slide did change. So you can see the name of the ex-ante assessment in the title of the slide. So basically, the aim is to justify the use of financial instruments within the European Social Fund Plus. So to support actually key priorities of our program. So the financial allocation, which is 50 million euros, and specifically for this microfinance scheme, it's 30 million euros. It's planned within our priority one. And key objective under this priority, actually, you can also see the name here. It's quite long, so I'm not going to read it, but young people are actually emphasized in this key objective. So basically, youth, among other vulnerable groups, is a central focus for intervention through this particular microfinance scheme. When we did the programming, so during the programming process for this program, we actually took the data. So these are the data that we basically relied on when we did our ex-ante assessment. So when we did the ex-ante assessment, we also went through the programming periods, which also included negotiations with the European Commission. So everything here was actually exchanged with them, and we had a lot of negotiations on the key aspects of this microloan. So basically, we relied heavily on the European Commission's country report for Croatia, which is actually the annual report, which is a part of the European semester exercise. So this was our main document, and it's from 2022 because that's when we actually did the programming. So this is the data that was current then. So we can see that actually we had a continuous growth of the rate of needs. So young people not in employment, education, or training. So it actually increased from 2019 to 2021. It was actually above the EU average. So this is actually a group which with which we have quite a bit of issues. So according to the report, prevention and outreach measures for needs were underdeveloped. Also, when comparing it to the country report from 2024, so vulnerable groups, including young people, even though the statistics are a bit lower, they still do face persistent barriers to accessing the labor market and securing employment. So even though the data for needs is a bit better, we still actually have some issues. Also, the data said that the employment rate of recently graduated higher education students was one of the lowest in the EU. And also there was, I think Daniela also mentioned that that's a very notable trend in Croatia. So when people start businesses, they start them out of necessity. So they need to find a job, they cannot find a job, but they need to earn a living. So they basically decide, okay, we are going to start a business. And these individuals usually don't have the basic knowledge to start and own a business. So they are often less prepared for entrepreneurial activities. Basically, so those are some of the data that we relied on when we did the programming, the design of our ESF Plus microloan. But there is also another microfinance scheme in Croatia, which I would like to mention. That's the self-employment scheme that is implemented by our Croatian Employment Service. That's an active labor market measure. It's existent for quite a long time, and it's quite familiar here in Croatia. A lot of people, when they want to open a business, if they are not employed, so they have to be an unemployed person, they basically, if they cannot find a job, and like we mentioned, they have to earn a living. So if they want to open a business, they go to the Croatian Employment Service and they apply for the self-employment scheme. So through that scheme, they can get financial support in the form of grants. So the only criteria is actually for the person to be unemployed. There is some advantage, I think, in the scoring system. If a person is a first-time entrepreneur, they get some advantage, when chosen to get the measure. Also, we have some data, very recent data, that there is a high level of survival actually of those businesses which are developed through this scheme. I think it's more than 80%, if I'm not mistaken. So those businesses basically are our potential final recipients. So because this is a grant, they will get like a startup capital. So if the business gets going, they can basically go and apply for the ESF microloan. So there is a certain complement between those schemes, and that's also something that the European Commission, insisted on, that there are complementarities between measures. So we believe that these two measures are very complementary to each other. So our microfinance scheme, it's designed to support targeted groups who have the greatest difficulty accessing financial products. So here, when we did our ex-ante assessment, we did talk to a lot of banks, and basically young enterprises, particularly micro and small businesses, they have difficulties obtaining loans from commercial banks for various reasons. Some of them are administrative burden versus returns. So microloans are very, administratively burdensome because they do require resources from the banks, and those resources basically aren't compensated by the returns of those smaller loans. Also, the inability of young enterprises to provide own contribution or some collateral for investments, which commercial banks do demand. Then low existing or future repayment potential, so which is determined by credits analysis. So basically, there are a lot of reasons, and the numbers are from the banks. They said that basically out of 10 applications, 9 are rejected. So there is a very high level of rejected applications from young enterprises. Also, like I said, it's a very good complement to the self-employment measure. And here, young people are specifically identified as a vulnerable group for not just a final recipient of the loan, but also the employment support. So we will talk about it a little bit later. So these are the key features of the financial instrument. So you can see the eligible final recipients. So we have newly established companies, which are up to 3 years in existence, and also companies whose owners are members of the following vulnerable groups. So those vulnerable groups, they are basically selected based on data from the country reports for Croatia. They are most vulnerable in terms of their lower employment rates. And here, actually, persons aged 18 to 29 years, they're emphasized as one of those vulnerable groups. So the amount is from 1,000 to 25,000 euros, and the interest rate, actually, we attached it to the European Commission's base rate for Croatia. So we take that base rate and then we reduce it by 2.5 percentage points. But basically, the interest rate cannot be less than 0.5%, which is actually now. So that's the lowest interest rate that can be. Also, this is a very interesting part. This is a novelty in this programming period. So we can actually combine financial instruments with grants. And we actually did use this. So to be able to write off a certain amount of loan, so 30% of the loan amount, if a business owner employs a person who is a member of a vulnerable group. So if they employ somebody from these eligible categories of vulnerable groups, and if they fulfill certain criteria, so they are able to get up to 30% of the loan amounts written off. So this is our way of, trying to also encourage them to employ people from vulnerable categories. And we definitely wanted to use this opportunity. So this is the capital rebate possibility. So basically, through this microloan, we are trying basically to stimulate investment. So this is an investment loan, so that there has to be an investment. So investment of micro and small enterprises, and at the same time, we are trying to improve the situation of specific categories of vulnerable groups on the labor market through this possibility of financing, combining financial instruments with grants. So basically, to conclude, this was our way, you know, I don't know how to say, you know, we wanted to be able to help the vulnerable group, which basically is a point, you know, this is the European Social Fund. So the emphasis is on vulnerable groups. So since we are dealing with financial instruments, we wanted definitely, and through the negotiations with the European Commission, we definitely wanted to focus on these types of these groups. So basically, we try to do it through this this microloan. The microloan is basically it's quite recently published. It's published on 31st of March. So it's not a long time, you know. So we don't have results yet, some, you know, significant results that we can share, but we do hope that it will have, you know, a good effect, you know, some good results to be able to show that it did fulfill the goal. So basically, it is expected to contribute to preserving existing jobs and create some new ones. And basically, through this a combination of financial instruments and grants, we hope that we will tackle these vulnerable groups which have issues at the labor market. This is all from me. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that presentation. It's very informative. We have time for questions, so please feel free to raise your virtual hand or write your questions in the chat about this program. I will go ahead and kick us off while people think about their questions. So it was really interesting to see about the design and the process of coming up with these measures and targeting them to specific vulnerable groups. Did you have any targeted delivery measures? So for instance, have you worked with tailoring any outreach programs to these target groups so that they're aware of the program? How have you approached I know it's brand new, but in the last few months, how have you approached letting people know that this exists so that they can access these supports?
Actually, at this point, we still haven't. We actually did have. We called that the road show. So we actually did visit a couple of cities in Croatia. To, among others, so to present the microloan and, you know, all these key features of the microloan. So we did do some basic visibility, but also since this microloan is actually implemented by Hamag Bicro, it's the Croatian agency for SMEs. So they're actually financial intermediaries. We are trying to communicate with them, you know, for them to also up the visibility as much as they can. And also we do have, we plan in the future to have some other visibility activities. And also when we did the programming process, so there were certain working groups that were also included, you know, in the setting up, the drafting of the program and this particular financial instrument. So in those groups, there were representatives of NGOs, also NGOs that are representing youth, so they also had a say, you know, in all of this. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Does anyone else have a question for Ivana on the program? Going once, going twice. Okay, well, thank you again, Ivana. It was a very interesting presentation, very informative. Thank you. We will now move on to our next session. So unfortunately, our next presenter, Hess, was unable to join us due to a last-minute issue that came up. So we will now move on to the discussion of the YEPA legacy document. Just give me a minute to share my screen. Hopefully you can all see it now. So as we mentioned at the top of the agenda, the OECD and the European Commission are working on creating a lasting document that will serve as a legacy document for all of the work, the discussion, the policy dialogue that we have had over the last 2.5 years. So the aim of this document is to highlight the importance of renewed policy for youth entrepreneurship across the EU and OECD countries, to capture key insights and learnings of the YEPA. So to highlight all that we've discussed through our workshop series, our side events, our in-person events, and harness those learnings across all of the topics into one key document. And this document is meant to serve as a tool for the continuity, advocacy, and future action around youth entrepreneurship policy by providing actual policy pointers. So the nature of the document, it will be a short action-oriented report. So it's meant for to be a tool for you all to take back to your countries, to share, to advocate for youth entrepreneurship, and to show what we've been doing and working towards over the last 3 years. And so this will have the key issues from all of the different workshops that we've talked about, including our very first one about 2 years ago on access to finance. We've talked about the importance of role models and how they can inspire and motivate young people to pursue entrepreneurship. We've talked about the need to have inclusive networks, whether that's youth entrepreneurship dedicated networks or helping young people integrate into existing networks in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We've also looked at making sure that policy is working for different subgroups. Young people are not a monolith. So working with young women, for example, or as Ivana just mentioned in this policy, was working with young people that are not in education or employment. They might face different issues than graduates from a tech university and starting their own businesses. So this report will have all of that. And we're wanting to work, as we have the last few years, with you all, the YEPA participants. This has been an initiative that has relied on your guidance, what is happening on the ground in all of the countries. So we want to keep that momentum going, and we want to make sure that this document represents all of the diverse voices in the YEPA community. So we're looking to hear from you, hear your feedback on the document. It will be circulated, the draft document, to all YEPA participants ahead of the YEPA summit in October. So you will all have the ability to provide your feedback, your insights, and any comments that you would like. We're also going to appoint a steering group to help guide the drafting of this document, especially around the priority messages coming out of the YEPA. And the OECD will lead as well in terms of reviewing all of the presentations that you have shared over the course of the YEPA, all of the policy dialogues and the documents. We've been keeping track of all of them, so we're going to try to bring them all together and pull out the key messages. So I'll briefly talk about the steering group. So if you're interested in pursuing participating in the steering group, we would love to have you. Please reach out to me by 30 June. To briefly highlight what we're looking for. So the steering group will be a very small select group of the YEPA. So we're looking for about 12 to 15 individuals. And our goal is, again, to have most diverse voices. So we want to make sure that there's an array of countries represented. We don't want everyone from the same country. We want to also make sure that all of the different YEPA profiles and categories are part of this discussion. So as you know, we have policymakers, we have youth entrepreneurship networks, we have experts in youth entrepreneurship, we have practitioners and support organizations, and we have young entrepreneurs themselves. So we're looking to have a nice mix of all of the different profiles so that we can hear from the different perspectives of what needs to be done and what the key messages are for each of these groups. So we're looking for people that care about making the YEPA legacy meaningful and useful, again, action-oriented. We're looking to try to have clear insights and clear actionable steps that can be taken. And most importantly, with the summer holidays coming up, the person that in the steering group need to be available on the 17th of July because we will be having our online steering group meeting then. So please keep that in mind as you consider whether or not you would like to participate. And then after we receive the information on the 30th June, we will get back to you on whether or not you've been selected to be part of this group. But again, as I mentioned, all YEPA participants will be able to comment and include their insights on the draft via written feedback. So I will just pause here. If there are any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask. So we will then move into our next session, but there might be a few questions on the actual legacy document. Does not look like it. Wonderful. Okay, well then we will move on to our next part of the workshop, which is hearing from you on YEPA insights. So we're going to go ahead and start the process of thinking about what YEPA has achieved, what we're working towards, and what the next steps can be in terms of supporting the future of youth entrepreneurship policy. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into breakout groups, and we're going to discuss 3 key questions around YEPA. So I ask that each group nominates a rapporteur who can collect these comments and feedback, and we will have time to share, or you can also send it to me after the workshop as well in an email, because we want to hear from you directly and use this in our first draft for the legacy document. So the 3 key questions that you should discuss in your small groups is reflecting on a whole from the YEPA experience. What are the key takeaway messages that you have? What sticks out to you across all of the workshops and events? What are you taking away and what do you want to share with others? We also want to hear about your involvement and how this has shaped your understanding of the challenges and opportunities being faced by young people who want to pursue business creation. So in each workshop, we've really highlighted the different challenges, whether that's accessing finance or networks, whether that's building the entrepreneurship skills and mindsets. We've talked about today fear of failure. So has your involvement in YEPA shaped or adjusted your perspective on any of these issues and how youth entrepreneurship policy can support addressing these barriers? And the last question is the broader lessons that you can think of to inform future youth entrepreneurship policy. So we've talked a lot about current policy, but what are some of the key messages that can be taken and used as we design and deliver youth entrepreneurship policy going forward? So I will now stop sharing my screen so that I can see you all again. Are there any questions before I put you into the breakout groups in terms of what we're discussing and what we're looking for? No? Okay. Then I will go ahead and send you into the breakout groups, and I will look forward to seeing you in one of the groups. Do you not see anything, Ivana? I'll try to send it to you again.
I think I'm unassigned because
Okay.
I only see like a
Ah,
little window.
welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful discussion. Our group had a lot of different ideas and topics of conversation on terms of key takeaways of the YEPA and what we've been working to do. So we now have a few minutes before we wrap up today's workshop just to hear from each of the small groups all together what we think some of the key messages of the YEPA are, what some broader lessons that we could take forward from the YEPA into our home countries, and if YEPA has shifted or changed your perception of some of these challenges or opportunities that have been highlighted throughout our workshop series. So I'll now pass the floor to all of you. Feel free to unmute yourself for a small group. So it will be great to hear from the rapporteurs. Perhaps, maybe, I know, see, and let's see. Is there any small group that would like to start? I guess is probably the easiest way to do it. Yes, Baptiste.
Sure. I don't mind. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. We had a really good discussion in our groups. Although, like me, we did not participate to all YIPA seminars. But where to start? I think in terms of takeaway, the YIPA, what I understand, managed to connect people that usually were not connected. So it's not a network of young people, among young people. It's not a network of like policymakers among policymakers. And this really provided a new connection opportunity. I think other takeaway is this. There is two really important things that we move really towards this agreed need to explore entrepreneurship in school and as a skill to develop within our education background. And I think there is quite a consensus on that. Other element, I think that a lot to take away in terms of like on the financing, on the classic difficulty young entrepreneurs have, and lots of information was shared in terms of how to find opportunities and how to create those opportunities. A lot has been said also in terms of takeaway for the vulnerable parts of the young population who have no luxury to take the time to think about the type of enterprise they want to set up. On the notion of involvement, what we discuss a lot about, like, okay, you have the policymakers, all the stakeholders working in terms of advocacy and all the way you can engage in terms of webinar and conference, and you share your experience, your project in your member state, and da. But the key question is, okay, moving forward is what type of partnership we can establish. To which extent the YIPA participants were connected within this LinkedIn network and were connected, on a regular basis outside of the 6 seminars that have been created. And that's the key questions. If people use this new contact and this new network to promote their own ideas or to federate, then you have the start of a kind of an alliance among the policymakers and the people who do the advocacy, the network, on some young startups who are willing, to give a help and show a little bit of leadership. That's for me the legacy element. But the question is the will going beyond what the European Union, together with the OECD, has created. So then you can have a lot of idea of okay, you make a big alliance. You create a global partnership or virtually with regular, continue policymakers, webinars, and one-stop shop for mentoring, coaching on demand, share of best practice, etc., etc. But it has to go beyond, the structured way we are processing now, and so the challenge is there, and who's ready to get involved, and who's ready to take an active part of it after October. I'm stopping here. It's really interesting this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Baptiste. Is there anyone else who would like to share what Ivana? Yes, thank you.
Yes, from our group. So some key points. So there were 4 of us. So my colleague Daniela from Croatia, and also colleagues from Cyprus and from the Netherlands. So we actually, the key thing that we wanted to say is that these types of initiatives really help us to actually get to focus on a topic, because we talked about youth entrepreneurship in our country. So basically it's not like a topic that's a primary topic, and these types of initiatives really do help us to to not to lose focus, so that we really have to think about youth entrepreneurship and how important this topic is for us. And so we also, because some of our members in our group, they're actually quite late to this YEPA initiatives. So they only, our colleague from Cyprus, this is his first workshop. So we actually talked about some really key things that we need to focus on. Definitely entrepreneurship curricula. So Cyprus is quite advanced on this. So they have programs, to prepare actually students to be entrepreneurs, but not just to be entrepreneurs, but to actually function well in society. So basically those soft skills that they are learning, they are helping them not just to be good entrepreneurs, but also, to be actually good, productive people, to be ready to go out in the labor markets. And also our colleague from the Netherlands, he actually said a very good point, the importance of entrepreneurial mindset. So it's maybe some young people don't want to embark on this journey because they believe that they don't have enough knowledge. They don't have the talent. Maybe they think they don't have talent because they don't have the skills. But actually here, what's more important is interest, and to have that mindset, because you can definitely learn those skills on the way, but not to be to have that attitude, okay, I don't have the skills, so I cannot do that. So I think the mindset, it's something that also we need to focus on more, and also these types of activities, initiatives like YEPA, they actually help us to see a lot of examples from other countries, which is really great. Not just the good ones, but also the bad ones, because sometimes we can learn quite a bit from the bad examples. And also for me, the importance of actually including the perspective and the experience of young entrepreneurs. So it's sometimes quite difficult to engage them in the conversation, because maybe they also believe that they don't have agency, because if the ministries if the institutions, if they are maybe ignoring them, maybe they think that they don't have any agency to actually affect the work of the state authorities. But definitely very important to include them. So it was really good to hear all the examples from young entrepreneurs during all these YEPA workshops. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. You definitely highlighted something that YEPA tried to do, which was to discuss what's working and what's not. So it's great that you highlighted that. It's true, we learn just as much from the good and the bad. Wonderful. Anyone else like to share a few words?
Happy to go next on behalf of our group. So we also talked a lot about the lack of mindset, and in particular, the importance of fostering trust in young people and entrepreneurs, but also self-trust. Otherwise, we're continuing missing on great ideas. And then we also spent a lot of attention discussing skills as one of the big challenges, meaning digital skills, entrepreneurial skills in general, but also language in terms of financial literacy. So these Language can also apply to lack of knowing English in some cases, which the group discussed that it might help. But then it's also about knowing specific words around the entrepreneurship world, both in English, but also, and maybe most importantly, in the native, non-English native language. Then we discussed a lot about the lack of quality training and education, and how some universities might be distanced from the current labor market, or might need some time to catch up on labor market trends and dynamics, needs, which fuel a lot of entrepreneurship ideas. We also touched upon the lack of social and green entrepreneurship that is an obstacle to cultivate young people's ideas to set up their own startups and enterprises, especially as we see, and it was highlighted by the YEPA, that's a great area of interest in young people. Then, of course, we also mentioned mentoring, and how in some cases it can be easy to access, but also how a lot of these initiatives might focus on some sectors more than others. For instance, ICT was a great example, but perhaps the same cannot be said about setting up entrepreneurship enterprises in other in other fields. So among the key takeaways, the group also highlighted how YEPA was very useful to compare the different initiatives and what's needed. This was particularly highlighted by national practitioners, which is a great idea. And it was also highlighted how the YEPA can help to then build more efficient policy measures and learning from one another, especially in today's context where setting up a business is not easy or as easy. Also how it is important that these policy initiatives at the end, they are accessible by young people, whether through schools, curricula in general, youth-focused networks, but also social media, which is not to be underestimated. And then that the format of initiatives like one-stop shops, they're also done in a way that they're attractive and adapted to the needs of the young people, to make sure that they pick up on this crazy in a good way, of course, crazy and important initiatives happening at the local level. So yes, this would be the recap, but I let other group members raise anything that I may have missed.
Is there anyone from any of the groups that would like to add a word or two in the last few minutes we have together? If not, I think we heard some really great takeaways from all of the groups, and this is helpful for us as we start to craft the legacy document. It's great to hear that overall the peer learning, the policy dialogue, the concrete examples of how different countries are approaching youth entrepreneurship policy and support has been useful for you over the last few years. It's been great to hear all of the things happening on the ground and learning through you all, but also from young people themselves, their experience of using these supports and programs and whether it's helping them. I think one of our takeaways from our small group, we thought back to the launch event back in 2023, and the young entrepreneur saying she learned how to do international mergers in university, but not how to keep her own books and how to start her own company. So it's been an interesting journey over the last few years to learn the gaps that are still there, but also what is happening and what is going well across the EU and OECD countries. So in the last few minutes, I will just wrap up and close. It's been a great pleasure to share this experience with you over the last 6 workshops, whether you were able to attend all of them or not. We've covered so many different dimensions of youth entrepreneurship policy through the side events, through engaging with you all in this dialogue. And I think for us, one of the big takeaways is that it's clear that policy isn't just a background instrument that should be left to operate by itself, but that it's truly a strategic lever for inclusive growth, and it really should play a central role in facilitating young people's integration into the labor market, notably through business creation and entrepreneurship, as well as its role in fostering entrepreneurship skills and mindsets, as we talked about, starting young, helping people understand that this is a career path that they can pursue later on. And it also has a role in opening doors to finance and support structures, helping to build these networks and communities and bring people together to create a supportive environment for business creation. And ultimately, policy can help young people to innovate, to connect them with other people, and to help grow the business community and help their businesses thrive. So to briefly wrap up in the last minute, so I don't hold you too long, please don't forget to register for the Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Summit. We've extended the deadline for you, so you can do that after this workshop if you have not done so already, but please do that before the end of the week so that we can start the preparations. And if you're interested in being the steering group, please reach out to me by 30 June to express your interest, and we will get back to you on whether you've been selected. So with that, I would like to just thank you once again on behalf of the YEPA team for your participation in YEPA, for sharing your insights, your continued commitment to empowering youth entrepreneurs. And we look forward to seeing you in Brussels in October.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we going to have more
Thank you very
information
much.
about the Brussels trip? If someone going to contact us for
Yes. Once
details?
the registration is closed, like I said, we had to extend it to let a few more people get in with the link, and then we'll reach out to you with more information on the travel and arrangements. So you should hear from us shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks
you.
to
Bye.
See you in
Croatia.
You.
Thanks to Croatia, the
Thank
host.
you, Croatia.
Thank
It was
you.
very
You're
good
welcome.
presentation.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.